in 2021, rock climbing officially became an Olympic event. It did not go well.
The change of grip from underarm to overarm to squeezing to finger holes.
The issues that happened with rock climbing in the Olympics all stem from the Olympic Committee's decision to combine all three disciplines of climbing into one format. Yeah, apparently they didn't have enough medals to give out for all three disciplines, so they just mushed them all together. I don't know that much about the medals, but I can't imagine they're made out of pure gold or anything like that. I don't think they're like cheap rip-offs or like chocolate or anything, but they're probably some relatively affordable alloy, right? Even if they are expensive, they can't be anywhere near the cost of hosting all these events. Like, they took the time to host speed climbing, lead climbing, and bouldering. Why could they not have just had separate medals for them? I don't understand how that was so difficult. I might not know what I'm talking about. I don't know the whole process, but to most people, this just seemed a bit absurd. I actually saw an argument on Reddit where somebody was like, swimming has dozens of medals for all their different events, but then rock climbing gets one. And somebody else was like, well, swimming's been around since the beginning of time, so what a stupid argument. And I do get that it's been in the Olympics longer, but to argue that anything's been around longer than climbing for humans is just absurd. It's like the first thing we learned how to do. We arguably have been climbing much longer than we've been swimming, since swimming is probably relatively new to us as humans. All that being said, let's get into the actual issues that happened. The first major issue was a lot of climbers just weren't able to compete outside of their unique discipline. Alexandra Miroslav actually set a world record in speed climbing at the Olympics.
And they are away for a sign. Great start from Joubert. Miroslav has already come back. And now has a slender lead. Here comes Alexander Miroslav with a time. 6.84 seconds. And the world record has gone.
And you would think, wow, that's amazing. She probably got first place then, right? Didn't make the podium. That's right, the greatest achievement you can probably achieve in the Olympics, which is setting a world record in your event, wasn't good enough to get any medals. This was because Alexandra Miroslav simply wasn't able to compete with the boulderers or the lead climbers. She wasn't able to send a single boulder or even get a zone on a single one.
She has 1 minute left, Miroslav of Poland, to try and get at least to the zone.
That's what she's trying to do. And then, with the left hand.
But it's such a different event, boulder and lead, compared to speed, which is her specialist area, and how good at it she is, getting the world record in a couple of hours' time when we get to the lead part of the women's final.
They all had chances. All of them had chances. Alexander Miroslav.
On top of that, her and her fellow speed climber both did not get far at all on the lead wall. This isn't to say they're bad climbers, it's just to prove the point that this combined format just doesn't work. You can see here the move that one of the speed climbers fell on the lead wall was easily doable by another climber who was a lead specialist.
Even though after 1 minute. The route setter has suggested we may lose the speed specialist at this point. They were right.
There should not be disparities this big between the skill levels of athletes at the Olympics. They should all be at the top of whatever field they're competing in. This also begs the question of, like, how did certain climbers qualify? I don't think there was a conspiracy or anything, but seeing the performance of the speed climbers on the other two disciplines, it doesn't really make any sense that they were able to do well enough on those to qualify in the first place. My theory is that they just wanted really good speed climbers in there to show off the sport, so they just kind of like let them in. I know it sounds condescending, like they didn't earn it, but there's just so many professional boulderers and lead climbers that can compete with the other climbers that were at the Olympics. I just don't understand how they wouldn't qualify over the speed climbers. So this was one of the main controversies that came up, was just that Alexandra Miroslav definitely should have gotten some type of medal for setting a world record. This wasn't as much of an issue on the men's side, just because the only speed specialist there was Mikhail Mawam, who's also a competitive boulderer as well, so he was able to cross disciplines very well. This brings up the second issue with the speed climbing, which is that Mikhail Mawam had the fastest time on the speed wall. So you would think first place, right? Fastest time. No. Actually, the climber with the 5th fastest time got first place. This is because they decided to use a tournament bracket where the climbers would face off one-on-one on the speed wall to determine who got first. Now, I will admit, I'm definitely biased towards tournament brackets. In 5th grade, I went to the Pinewood Derby regionals and set the track record. I had one slow race in the semifinals though, which sent me into the losers bracket where I ended up getting 3rd place overall. I had the fastest time. I want my damn medal. After this, the next big issue that came up was the men's bouldering. Boulder number 1 was a V0 in my gym boulder problem, which basically means it was just way too easy for all the climbers.
The same way as the other two similar holds, a small hold has been added, both hands on it. Great start from the American.
Toes just on the hold.
Well done, Jakob Schubert. Ondra Narasaki and Moem will notice and think, okay, you've done this rather quickly. Taking his time, looking to find the top. Oh, and does so. Hearing Nagasaki Tomoa on, and he joins the party.
6 out of 7 climbers topped this boulder relatively easily, with the exception of the gold medalist, ironically.
It's a difficult section.
On the other side of the coin, boulder number 3 was just way too hard. I guess their setters were trying to set like a V12, but they set like a V14. If you don't know much about climbing or grades, this is way too hard even for pro climbers to do in 4 minutes. All these climbers are capable of climbing at that level, but not in 4 minutes. That's ridiculous.
We celebrated his birthday here this week, and you can see that face grimacing. It's a mask of pain as he looks to try and find the top. For Schubert, he's got to do the same as Jakob Schubert and do this in less than 2 goes.
Adam Ondra made it the furthest on this boulder, and by the furthest, I mean he did 1 more move than everybody else. But that just goes to show how hard it is, that if Adam Ondra can't do it in 4 minutes, nobody's probably going to be able to.
Grimacing, Ondra, look at the power! Look at the raw strength from the Czech Republic athlete. Just to hold on, 15 seconds to go. Can he hold on? Can he keep there? He needs to move. Shortly, he's not going to do it.
This was another big point of controversy because that left boulder number 2 to decide the fate of all the climbers. On top of that, boulder number 2 is actually a very parkour style problem, which is already another huge issue in climbing.
When he come in 5th and 6th respectively. He's been runner-up in Bouldering World Cups in the past, and both of them were on home soil in the USA.
Now, I actually really like the comp style climbing with the parkour and gymnastics moves, but a lot of climbers really don't like it, and to see that determine who's the best boulderer was not great. My argument is that a lot of outdoor climbers really don't like indoor bouldering, and a lot of indoor boulderers don't really like outdoor climbing. So if indoor bouldering starts to become its own thing, that should be good. It's separating them into 2 different things, because you already didn't like indoor bouldering, so why do you care if it's becoming less and less like outdoor climbing? The last major issue came up at the very end in the lead finals. At a certain point while the final climber was climbing during the lead finals, Adam Ondra was in 1st place to win the gold for the entire Olympics. However, Jakob Schubert, the final climber, ended up topping the boulder, passing Adam's best spot. You would think if Adam got passed by one other climber, he would move down a spot because he got passed, right?
Jakob Schubert, now at 42 moves past, does he pass? He does, and the title is going to go to Spain as Jakob Schubert tops out. But he's put the crown, the Olympic crown, on Alberto Gines Lopez.
Well, it turns out Ricky Bobby's dad was actually the head of the Olympic committee, so Adam Ondra went from 1st place to 6th place out of 7.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Obviously, this sparked a bunch of controversy because everyone was like, how do you go from 1st place to basically last because one person passed you? And while this isn't necessarily as ridiculous as it sounds, it just kind of happened that way. The system just doesn't work for this climbing combined format because it doesn't really factor in how well you climbed in certain events. So in the end, Alberto Gines Lopez ended up taking the gold, which is a massive achievement that he definitely earned. But unfortunately, he's been under a lot of scrutiny just because of the format of the Olympics. And I definitely understand that, but it is important to remember that it's the format that was the issue and it's not the climbers. All these climbers went into the same Olympics with the same expectations, knowing full well what the format was. So to criticize one of them for winning doesn't really make sense because somebody was going to win and it was probably going to be at somebody else's sake anyway. But in fairness, to show why people are so annoyed by it, Alberto Gines Lopez got 4th out of 7 on lead, which is dead center, very average. Before that, he got 7th out of 7 in bouldering, which is last place. And before that, he had the 5th fastest time on the speed wall out of 7. So essentially, he had what amounted to 4th place, 7th place, 5th place out of 7, which is not even average, but below average. I think me and a lot of other fans think that Jakob Schubert or Nathaniel Coleman definitely deserved the gold. The two of them performed by far the best and had amazing performances, but ultimately got silver and bronze instead. Thankfully, the women's Olympics actually went much better. Janja Garnbret went on to win gold, followed by Miho Nanaka and then Akio Noguchi. These are 3 extremely gifted climbers who have been through IFSC many times and won many medals. So seeing the 3 of them on the podium was very comforting compared to the men's. I think if Janja hadn't won gold, that probably would have been the biggest controversy in the whole thing, but thankfully she did because there was really no way she wasn't going to with how well she's been performing lately. So that's pretty much all the issues with the Olympic rock climbing in 2021. I think it's important to remember that it is the debut, so there's bound to be some issues. I'm sure this isn't the first time that the Olympics has used a combined format and really annoyed a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that's how steeplechase was created in the first place. They basically just mushed a 5K, hurdles, long jump, and high jump all into one event. So all in all, the Olympics didn't go quite as well as anyone wanted them to, but I'm still hopeful for the future. I'm sure, we'll get our medal groups and you'll see the climbers who deserve to win winning in their respective events. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.